Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on our authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
Good afternoon. Glad to be here. I am so honored to be a part of this group. Reader's Magnet is a wonderful organization, a company, or they've met the needs of so many individuals. We have been working very hard as authors. We write books. We try to sell our books. We try to make them known because we enjoy the message that we have written. And our written message is worth a lot of words, and it goes a long way. And our children in the schools need to have books to read. Electronics are nice, but books are nicer. I'd like to go over to this evening about the books that I've written, the way that they came to me, and how I enjoyed doing it. I've been in education for about 43 or 44 years. I started when I was very young. I knew in the second grade I wanted to be a teacher. So I worked hard and went through a lot of jobs and got a lot of good experiences, and I want to share those with people. So that's why I've written my books. And what I do most of all is I try to listen. If you listen, you can pick up on a lot of things. The first book that I had written was on a Sunday afternoon, and it was called Who Are Those People Back There? And we're going to see a little clip about a person that uses it in her classroom.
Hello, my name is Ninky McCarty, and I'm an educator of primary age children. As a first grader growing up in Southwest Virginia in a small coal camp in the 1960s, where mining in the local town of Appalachia was a major industry, I attended the Appalachia Elementary School. I rode the bus daily, about 10 miles both ways. My school population was 100% white. Black families lived and attended the black schools of the Appalachia area at that time. But I didn't have any contact with black children or their families. There may have been black coal miners working with my father in the coal mines, but we never had any chance to get to know. Know them, or their families, their climate, their culture, or their lifestyle. Our small
just skip the video. We'll just go live again. Sorry for the inconvenience of the audio and visual aids that we had prepared. I'm sorry that Nikki McCarty was unable to give her little information about the way she was raised. We tried to get some people to interview during our session here today so that you'd find out a little bit more about Southwest Virginia and the things that we have that make our economy flow. And coal is number one, of course, kind of objectionable to the rest of the country, but it's made a livelihood for many people here in the Appalachians. The book, Who Are Those People Back There, is a book that I wrote. One Sunday afternoon, I started thinking about how after church, we always went over to my grandmother's house and she'd fix dinner and we'd play outside. And we'd always play with the children that lived close by. And there was a black church just up the corner and 2 or 3 houses up the corner that were right next door to my granny. And she knew no color lines. There were no black and white in her eyes. If she brought ice cream outside for one person, she brought them for everybody. And this is the way that we were raised. We wanted to be known and be friendly with people and get along, to be kind. And that's the things that we kind of put in our minds to do. The book talks about when we were growing up, about how there were differences, that there were white bathrooms and black bathrooms. There were white restaurants, and the blacks had to go to the window and wait their turn to get their food. They had to go to the grocery or to the department store and get their shoes, and they had to wait behind a curtain on a bench till all the white people were served, and then they would be served. And these are things that were prominent during that day. My book has done pretty well as far as getting out the word about what there is available for education. Another reason I wrote the book was because I was an elementary guidance counselor at the time, and Black History Month and Reading Month in February and March, I wanted to have some materials on Black history. And in a primary school with pre-K through 4th, there weren't any materials. So that's one reason I wrote the book. And in Wise County, where I taught and was administrator, every high school and grade school have the books now in their classrooms, so that if they wish to find out a little bit more about the situation and the time it was during that era, then they have the opportunity to do so. The biggest thing I think that Nikki was going to say in her little video that she did was that there was several that came to her school when she was in 5th grade. And several black students came to her school, and she said that one of them was very intelligent, very, very smart, and was the valedictorian of the class. And she was so glad, and everybody was happy. They didn't care what color skin he was. He was one of the boys that had done real well in school. And the other person that she befriended was a little girl, and said they grew up and graduated and were friends, and they're still friends to this day. So there you go, to show that we can all get along if we just put forth the effort. The next book that I'm going to talk a little bit about is called Goodness Gracious. Goodness Gracious, Grumbling is Contagious.
Privilege of reading Sandy's book. It is centered on children and ways to help them in the world they live in today.
This is the book
A cousin
about
in her family went through the same experience with her 2 grandchildren. This story helped the children, to understand Grams was sick. People in the hospital would help her get well, and she would come home to them. Now, Sandy's book is short, kept the children's attention, gave them understanding of the place that would take good care of their Grams. It also gave them peace and brought them closer together as a family. I would recommend this book to anyone who has children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and thank you for the opportunity.
Go ahead and say something.
Thank you, Kathy. Kathy was very upset one Sunday at church. She came to me and said that did I have any information about a hospital, or had I ever written a book about a hospital? And I told her no, that I had not. And this is the cover of the book. There you go. It's kind of hard to maneuver all this in here. It has an ambulance out front. It's a big blue building, and it's kind of intimidating, but on the inside, the way we wrote the story, it's very warm and welcoming to people. And if you've ever had a child that had to go to the hospital or be in the hospital for a while, it is a big thing for them because they don't know much about it. So the hospital book was written. It's the last book that I have written, and it is at Reader's Magnet now to be published too.
Okay. Let me have it.
The big thing was that Kathy listened. She listened to what her friend had to say about the little girl being scared for her Grams to go into the hospital. So listening was an important part of the book because the grandmother told my friend Kathy, and my friend Kathy told me or asked me, would there be a chance that you could write a book about the hospital? So it was during the pandemic and everything was going wild, and everyone knows how it was during that time. And I thought of the title of the book, Get Well Quick, Hospital for the Sick, because so many people were scared about going to the hospital, not only children, but adults, because so much was happening. So that was the last book that I had written. And I just, again, listening is the key to a lot of things. The next book that I had was a book about giants. It's called Little Giant Teaches Big Lessons. And it has a teacher's part and it has a student part. Switch them here. This is the student's part, and it has all kinds of activities and stories in it. And the teacher's part has a lot of information for teachers. It has lesson plans, and it's for counselors. But if you're a teacher in a classroom and you don't have a counselor at your school, the lessons it teaches are certainly good. Basically, it's about a family, and they have all kinds of problems with their 4 children. And Manners is a little boy that was living in the house. He's one of the giants, but he isn't a giant. He is a little boy. And all the other children are very large for their age. The name of the girl is Puller of the Hair. Every time Manners would hear something about his sister, she was in trouble pulling someone's hair to get her way. And all the other girls were very scared of her. So she had to learn how to make friends. And making friends with a child that has problems socially is very important. It's very important for us to reach out to those children that have trouble blending in and making friends and talking to other children or adults. And that's why we as adults and teachers have to be sure that we can help them in some way through reading of books. The other story that we have is called Goodness Gracious, Grumbling is Contagious. And this is just kind of a fun little book. It's about opossums that go out and get in there. They have a tree that's their home. And another group of opossums move into the tree, and infect it with the grumbling bug. And the opossums that originally lived there get all upset because they don't want to live in a tree that's been infected with the grumbling bug. So they try to figure out what they're going to do. And this story came, it was Thanksgiving about 3 years ago now. And our pastor was talking about how we should all be very thankful on Thanksgiving. A lot of times we grumble because something happened to the food we were preparing, or maybe we didn't get our Christmas tree up early enough in order for it to be up during Thanksgiving also, and lots of other things that come to be. But the Goodness Gracious book tells a story about grumbling, which is not being grateful for what you have. So when I left church and got home, I said, well, that was an interesting message that our pastor had today. And he was talking about complaining, and complaining is grumbling. And then the contagious Goodness Gracious, it all rhymed and came about. And it's just a fun little book that children love because the possums are always around somewhere and they see them all the time. I've got one I've got to tell you. Do you know why the possum crossed the road? Why the chicken crossed the road? He wanted to prove to the possum it could be done. That's one I learned a long time ago, and it's about the only joke I know. So that's worth that, I guess. And the book that Kathy was talking about, the Get Well Quick Hospital for the Sick, is a very important book. And my wish and my hope is to get it out and let it go into doctors' offices, nurses, health caregivers, hospitals. In some hospitals, in some districts where there's a hospital, they fix little treat bags for the children. I'd hope that maybe the book could go in the bag and the child could read the book, or the parent could read the book to the child, and they would feel so much better about the situation. The other book that we have is the one that is being published now is called Nobody, with a little N, is Somebody, with a capital S. And Nobody is Somebody is a real special book because there are a lot of nobodies in the world. They think they're nobodies, but when often tested to the limit and come up with things that they find out they can do, then they excel. You know, it just takes one little thing for a child to find that he or she can do well. Then they feel good because everyone starts bragging on them. And this is kind of the storyline of Nobody. He thought that he did not like sports or phys ed or going outside or doing any of those things. The coach had kind of befriended him because he thought that he liked sports and games, but he just never had the opportunity to really play in any of those or compete in any of them. So the coach befriended him, and they talked a lot. And one day the coach said, "Hey, Nobody, come over here and let's play on the field for a while." And Nobody wanted nothing to do with that because he just didn't like to run or get hot, sweat up, or any of those sorts of things. So the coach finally persuaded him to play a little ball and get some of the other children involved. And he had to admit that it was fun. It was fun to play ball, and he had a good time. Well, a few days later, they find out that there's a special event coming to the school, and the school is preparing and getting everything painted and dressed up a little bit for parents to come in and visit because they're going to have a competition. And the coach encourages Nobody to enter the competition. And Nobody doesn't think much of that. He doesn't know if he should do that or not because that might be a little bit over his limit of doing anything. So he thought about it for a day or two, and then the coach told him, "Let's go see the guidance counselor and talk to her." And when they went to see the guidance counselor, they found out that Nobody had good grades and he'd done real well in several of these subjects. So the coach and the guidance counselor convinced him to enter the competition. And the competition went forth and came forth, and they all competed and everything. And Nobody, he did his best, but I wonder what happened. That's the end of that story. If you want to find out, you'll have to get the book. There's 5 stories in our manners book. I'm just going to talk a little bit about each one real quickly because I'm sorry that the videos didn't work. I had 2 short little videos just to show you a clip about, we did get to see Kathy talk about the hospital, But Ninky, I wanted her to talk a little bit about who are those people back there. And I know I spend a lot of time on who are those people back there. But Given Priority, I think, is one of the more important books as far as educating young children so that when they become adults, they are educated and they know that all of us are the same and that we all deserve a place on the bus, whether it be at the front, in the middle, or the back. Some people prefer to sit in the back. Some people prefer to sit in the front. It should be a freedom that they should enjoy, and all people are created equal, and they should have that opportunity to choose themselves. The other thing that I want to say is that I'd like to thank Reader's Magnet. This has been an experience that is keeps you on your toes. That's what I have to say. It keeps you balanced, keeps you on your toes, running back and forth, trying to find out what time we're going to do it today and where the stream is coming through and all sorts of things. But it's I wanted to do it because it challenges my brain. And that's why we all do it, because we want to do the best we can and leave that message out there that we are all the same, no matter what. I'm Sandra Birchfield. I appreciate your time. I'm honored to have had this slot on Reader's Magnet. And thanks to all the people that have been so hard working during this past few days, trying to get everything up and running. And I always tell my friends, technology is wonderful when it's working. But I thank you, and thank you for the time. All right, let's see if we've got some questions over here.
No. You don't have any. You don't have any.
Okay, if anyone wants to write a question, if you want to ask a question, feel free, and we'll put it on the private chat here, and we'll try to communicate back and forth to you if we can. A question from Giles Garcia on the chat booth. What books are very child friendly? Are you planning to write and promote another book? Well, I've been asked if I want to do a series. I had planned on doing a series with manners because, I had my names all figured out and everything, but I felt that was more important for the word of the book to get out, the series, to the teachers and the counselors that wanted to use it in the school systems. And I just couldn't by myself travel to places all over the country trying to sell the series. So Marco is, if you want to order Manners, you have to order it through Marco. So I let them have the copyright, and I get a 10% of whatever they make. And we haven't made a whole lot, but the thing is, it went a lot further by me giving it to them and letting it go out to the schools than if I had gone out myself and tried to talk about it to all the school systems. It's hard for one or two people to do that. So that's what happened to that book, that series. And I may eventually be able to work with them and do some more stories with Manners and the Giants. I hope so, because I really enjoyed doing that. I had a good friend, Carol Grace, that worked with me doing it. And that was good. That was a good question. Anyone else having a question to come along the bottom? The print's real good on the bottom, too. We had a little trouble with that yesterday, but it's good today. A question from Giles Garcia. I didn't answer the first one the right way, evidently. From the disc booth, how did you come up with names of the characters in your books? What are your inspirations? Well, I have a very active imagination. My sister and I were little. I have a brother that's 10 years younger than I am, and I have a sister that's 2 years younger than I. And my sister and I often played together, and we would play like we were adults, and we'd make up these names. Gardy was one name, and Edith, our mother's name, was the other one. And we'd pretend that we were in all these situations, and I think we got our inspiration from Lucy and Ethel on I Love Lucy. At the time, it was going on TV a lot of times, and a lot of times we get into trouble. We'd go out at nighttime. We had a couple of apple trees, little green apples, in the yard, and their two cousins lived below us, and they would come outside at night when the lightning bugs were out, and we'd have a apple war. We'd throw those apples at each other and see who was the winning side. We also had crabapple trees, so we'd throw those at each other. So just a lot of fun things when I was growing up. We had cat pistols. We had a lot of things that are banned today. So we don't get the opportunity. Our children don't get the opportunity as much as we did, unless we actually supervise them in the yard, and which is what we should do. So many of these toys are made so quickly and cheaply that sometimes they don't hold together as well as they should, and someone might get hurt. So always have a supervisor around. That'll work out real well. Okay, I wish I could help you more with the names. Again, I listen. When people are talking, I may pick up something. So that's the best thing to do. And be creative. Just let your imagination think. Any more questions? I appreciate the questions because it helps me to remember things I hadn't put in the session. Chat booth, you look like having a lot of fun when introducing your works and character. Do you find writing books refreshing and enthusiastic? Yes, I do. I've had a lot of health problems over my years of teaching. I had real good athletic ability and played a lot of sports and did all those sorts of things. And then when I was 44 years old, I had colon cancer. And I had 2 small children and a husband too during that time. But I went through a year of chemo and came out okay, did all right. Well, then a little later, I came out just 10 years ago with Parkinson's. They say I have a sister of Parkinson's because I don't have a lot of the serious effects of the disease yet. And I was diagnosed in 2010. But I guess when I think about it, the reason my characters that I write about make me so excited and I get involved enthusiastically with them is that it takes me into another realm, kind of takes me into their world. And what would Manners do if he found puller of the hair pulling someone's hair, or chatting on the computer and making fun of people, which he did? So that's a good question. You should feel good about your character. You should put yourself in their position and see what you can get into. And it makes for a good story, a story that will be read by children for years to come. Your legacy. That's what's important, is just leaving something that people will remember you for. Good question. Very good question. I'm trying to read this question here. Our print sometimes isn't. You mentioned that you've been both sick as a doctor before, with video. You've been with kids as a counselor before. Have you been working with kids still lately? Yes, as a matter of fact, I have. I have 4 grandchildren. 2 are 5, 1 is 7, 1 is 8. And Roger and I have a great time. We just got back from keeping them for a few days while their parents had to go to a funeral. So we enjoy being around kids, and we have a good church, and there's lots of children there that are always around, and we get to talk and play with them sometimes. So I love children, and I still respect their feelings because they are very important. And how they feel about themselves is more important than anything else. There was a little thing that in the Nobody book that you can go about and do whatever you will, but remember that all you have to do is just say, just be me. 3 little words is all you have to say, is just be me. And I think nobody found out that if he could be himself, he could do a lot more than he could trying to act like someone else. And that's what we have to remember when we're doing our books, is that, do you want to do something as an adult book, some story that would be more liking to an adult? Or if you want to do something that's more liking to a middle school child. It's important, I think, to get the right genre with the right grade level in your children's books, because Manners can go from ages 5 to 9 or 10, because the way they're structured, they have a choice of activities and things to do so that the teacher or the guidance counselor can choose what they think would be best. But I have enjoyed my career. I feel blessed that I was able to do what I said I wanted to do in second grade. And I hope each one of you have the same success. And I'm Sandra Birchfield, and if you have any questions, or you can reach me at my email or here at Reader's Magnet, or just send me a note. Thank you for your time.